right, so we have already talked about how to find missing sides of a triangle. Now what we're going to do is talk about how to find missing angles of a triangle. And so what I want you to do is kind of scroll about halfway down your paper and cut your page in half. So we're going to put a line across here. And we're just going to do a little bit of short review here on the bottom part of the page. So some quick review. And what I want to review is that I want you to remember what that is. And we talked about that being theta before, and that it represented an angle. Okay, you'll see if you look at the top of the page here, they actually put question marks in here, but we could just as easily have little thetas in there. Okay, that would be ideal and what you'd see in a more upper level paper. And then I also want to just review what the definitions of sine, cosine, and tangent are. Okay, so if you remember, sine of theta is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine of theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent of theta is opposite over adjacent. Okay, and then the other thing that you need to know, so what you're going to have here is you're going to know the entire fractional part. So you're going to know the two sides. Okay, so the only thing changing here is what you're going to use in the calculator. And so in the calculator, when you don't know the angle, you use the inverse trig function. And what those look like are this. On the calculator, you have a sine button, a cosine button, and a tangent button. Well, right above those, usually in a different color, you will see a sine with a -1 up there, a cosine with a -1, and a tangent with a -1. And these guys are the inverse. These are the inverse trig functions. So we're going to be using those. And to get to those, you have to hit your second, if you're actually using a real calculator. Now, let me take you out to Desmos real quick. So we'll go out to the internet, we'll go to Desmos, and you see if you're on the main page, you have your sine, cosine, and tangent. If you go to func out here, you get the inverse sine, inverse cosine, inverse tangent. So you don't have to hit a second button. You would just hit inverse sine, and then your parentheses show up. Okay, so I'll show you how we're going to use that back here in this note video. So just kind of a reminder, you guys know all this. We did all this before. So here's how we're going to utilize this. Let's go back to the top of the page. And I'm going to split this in half, kind of right down here. Okay, so what we want to do is, compared to the angle that's given, we want to label these sides. And we know that across from the right angle is always the hypotenuse. And next to the angle is your adjacent side. So adjacent and hypotenuse. Well, we know from the bottom of the page that that's our cosine. Cosine of theta is adjacent over hypotenuse. And I'm just going to fill in adjacent is 15 and hypotenuse is 45. Well, now, when we don't know the trig function, what we're going to do is use this inverse trig function. Okay, so we're going to go cosine to the -1, and that puts a parenthesis in there. And then you're just going to put this fraction right inside the parentheses. So 15 divided by 45, and then hit the equals button. So if you do this in Desmos, you're literally going to go to that function, put the cosine, inverse cosine, 15 divided by 45, and hit equals. If you're using one of the red calculators in my classroom, then you would go second cosine to get the inverse cosine button. And then when you do that, it puts the parenthesis in automatically. You don't have to do that. And then you're going to go 15 divided by 45. Make sure you put the closed parenthesis in and then hit the equals button. And if I do that, I get 70.528, if I round up. 70, so I'll just put 0.53, and that's degrees because you're finding the measure of an angle. Okay? So that's all you got to do with these. All right, so let's look at the next one. Compared to this angle, this is the opposite side. This is the adjacent side. So we know that's tangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. And then we just use our inverse tangent. 11 divided by 10. And I get my theta, or my angle, is equal to 47.73 degrees. Okay, so that is how we are going to take care of these and find a missing angle. All right, so make sure that these notes get turned in under notes, trig, finding missing angles. Okay, it's 20-point assignment. And then there was 2 worksheets that are going to follow that up. Okay, toodaloo.